So I was flying in single pilot in the Citation 5, and this is all blowing snow. And we're getting lower and lower and lower, and I can barely see the ground below me. It's a business jet, and there's nobody else in the airplane but me.
My name is Kolin Jones, and I'm the CEO of Amalfi Jets. Welcome to Above the Noise. Last season, I shared my story. Now, I'm back as host, sitting down with high performers, industry innovators, and outright game changers. Most people live one life, but my guest today has lived 3 different lives, from a decade in broadcast news, a successful executive coaching business, and being a charter pilot at a charter company. Stephanie, I am so excited to welcome you to Viasat's Above the Noise Business Aviation Edition podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Before aviation, executive coaching, broadcast news.
Yes.
How was that?
Broadcasting was phenomenal. It was interesting. Growing up, I only wanted to be a professional tennis player, or I wanted to be a professional singer or actress. And I was in musicals and plays and operettas and singing. And then I still play tennis today because I love it. And I actually wanted to be a pharmacist because my dad was a pharmacist. Yeah. So I went to school for pharmacy, went to my first chemistry class, and I was like, is this like a different language? Mm-hmm. It just wasn't for me. Yeah. And then I didn't really know what I was going to do in life, and you're 18 years old. What are you supposed to do? So I knew I loved sports immensely. I played sports. I loved watching them, but then I also knew that I loved presenting and storytelling. Yeah. And so sports broadcasting was really what I wanted to do. So I went for broadcasting, and I really wanted to do ESPN and all of that. So I went down the kind of sports path and got to do sports and news. And really where the jobs were was more in news because there was just far more of them. Yeah. So I went into news and really never looked back. Wow. And so did that for 10 years and about 5,000 newscasts.
Now, was there training involved in that? Because I feel like it's funny, every time I watch like a news segment, everyone has like their like news voice. Like, do you have a perfect news voice for on TV? do they teach that? Is that something you just have?
I think that I was just blessed with that. Okay. And so I just got hit the lottery there. So I was really lucky in that regard. But no, you kind of, it's like baptism by fire. Yeah. You have a good mentor or someone within the news station, but you have to kind of figure some of that out. Yeah. So how do you get a story done quickly? At the end of the day, the news is going to happen at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock, at noon. Now everything is online immediately. So you have to be prepared for that, and you have to be ready to have good quality content to put on air. And so it taught me a lot about resourcefulness because I had to get a story, I had to call someone for that story, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to talk to me. Yeah. So I had to be able to persuade them and show them the benefit of them being able to share their side of the story. So one of my very first news directors said, she's like, your BS or your ability to influence is dangerous. Yeah.
I feel like I even think about that. Like, yeah, I mean, I just assumed that you were given a story, but yeah, I mean, you need to get people to talk and go on camera and share their story. Yeah.
No, you absolutely do. You have to be able to show them there's a reason why they should be on camera when there's no reason why they would have otherwise. A lot of times it is to get their message out, which is important, but a lot of times it might be something very controversial that they don't want to. Yeah. And so how do you have that conversation? Interestingly, if I look at all the things that kind of lined up, the stars aligned early on in my life, my beat early on was covering aerospace and aviation.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that? So you weren't even like introduced to aviation at this point?
When I was around aerospace and covering all things at, one of the largest aviation universities, it was amazing that I never counted myself as being someone in there. So I got to fly in Black Hawk helicopters. Wow. I got to fly in World War II bombers. I got to cover the Blue Angels.
Which I feel like for the aviation people, that's something you appreciate.
Yes,
like following
of course.
The Blue Angels.
I never put myself in that seat until someone actually said and introduced me to aviation. And that is why I think it's so important for those in any field that are passionate about it. They have to introduce people because just because it's around you does not mean that you will actually count yourself in. How
did you kind of make your way into aviation? I feel like every aviation person has that one thing that kind of got them into it.
Absolutely. It's almost like a movie, the story is. I was sitting at my desk and the landline rang and I picked it up and it was an 80-year-old flight instructor named Victor Gelking. And he said, hello, Stephanie, this is Victor. I own a flight school and I think you should do a story on aviation. Great. And we would always get, whether it's emails or people reaching out to do a story on something.
I think Amalfi's emailed maybe 10,000 people for that same thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So people are always reaching out to do a story about something for us. And we're looking for something kind of juicy or controversial or something that's breaking news or exclusive. Yeah. And that was an evergreen story that I was like, okay, sure, it's not exclusive or something, but why not? We'll just air it on a Saturday or something. So I didn't think anything of it. I didn't even really know what the story was going to be. So I went out to the airport and get to know the flight instructor, and I go out to the airplane. He's like, all right, you get in the captain's seat on the left side. And I'm like,
oh, that's awesome.
Excuse me, what? Yeah. Now, me being a flight instructor now, I'm like, well, duh, you put the newbie in the left seat. Yeah. That's what you do. And then
I feel like that's a shock for every student pilot. Like you get in the cabin chair and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm flying. And they let you do it.
And little do they know that the person in the right seat can do literally everything. Land the plane, control the plane. We can handle it. But it's a big responsibility over there. He puts me in the left seat of a Piper Archer and he goes, your controls. And so, all right, my controls. We get on the runway and then I push up the power, we get to flying speed and we lift off for the first time. And I lift off on my own power for the first time. And I just think, where has this been all of my life? This is absolutely incredible. Wow. And who has been hiding aviation from me? Because I feel like, why did I not know about this?
It's addicting. Your first takeoff.
Yes.
You want to just keep flying.
Absolutely. And so in that hour-long flight, I was just absolutely enthralled. It was incredible. Oh, by the way, it was broadcast on NBC News because that was the story, was showing me getting my pilot's license.
Is that still documented somewhere on the internet?
Oh, yes. Yes. Cool. I have it and I air it when I give keynotes and I show this is the story. This is my very first flight ever.
I wish I recorded all my first flights.
Yeah.
I have a photo of me when I was I think 12 in a Cessna 182, it was glass, and I was too low and I couldn't see over the cowling. So I was fully flying IFR at 12 because I couldn't see anything.
My goodness.
But that's cool that you have that kind of documented.
I was so in love with aviation from that moment. Yeah. But I did not have any money. I didn't have the time. But more so, I didn't have access. I didn't have a crew of people or a support network that knew anything about aviation. So how was I supposed to start getting involved with it? So it wasn't until about, it was actually a couple weeks later, serendipitously, I met a gentleman who had his own airplane. He had a Turbo Commander and he just was flying privately and for business and that kind of thing. Well, then I got to know him and I would fly with him occasionally. And over the years, we got to know each other and hung out a lot. Yeah. Well, it wasn't until 5 years after that very first flight that I actually believed this was my time. I had started an executive coaching business in that amount of time. And I was just, from 8 a.m. till midnight every day working on the business that I didn't have time to pursue aviation. But finally, when I did, I asked him, I said, hey, I really want to get my pilot's license. And he's like, all right, I'm going to instruct you. And so he was my instructor through all my primary ratings, and he's now my husband.
Oh, that's amazing.
And
that's a great story.
And yes, we are still married through all of those ratings.
Who is more hours?
We are right at, he has 200 more, that's it.
Okay, so you caught up.
Yeah, so I totally caught up, and that was in a very short amount of times. Yeah, so he has one more instructor rating. I am CFI and MEI, so multi-engine and instructor. He has CFII, but I have 5 jet type ratings and he has 4. I mean, how to even say those words to me, sometimes I still pinch myself.
5 type ratings, pretty insane.
I do,
That's a pretty well-rated pilot.
Yes, thank you.
How does that work with you and your husband, both business owners, both successful, both pilots? How does that work?
Well, it used to be like that I wanted to fly all the time. And I was like flying Mr. Daisy, in the back because he's like, I'm just going to go sit in the back, or we were flying together. But often I would fly more. But now with my business and my work that's wonderfully flourishing, I'm like, sweetie, I've got a keynote that I have to go do, or I have to send some emails. Can you fly? And he's like, okay, awesome. Fine. And then he's like, all right, it's my turn. I want to go play chess because he's loves playing chess online. And so then we'll switch and get to fly.
Amazing. So, one thing that I say to the team, maybe too much and everyone gets annoyed at me, is pilots make really good business owners. Because when you're a pilot, you take off, let's say, in a Fargo, and you're flying to, Henderson or something, you're not thinking about what you're flying over. You're thinking about what the weather is going to be like. And it gives you that really good ability to kind of see ahead. So pivoting out of broadcast into building your own executive coaching business, how did that pivot start? What did you learn on the entrepreneurship side? And I guess you kind of did that before you became a pilot, but I think it's true that obviously you have that natural tendency to kind of see ahead. So how are they all connected?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I was in broadcast, as much as I absolutely loved it, about 8 years in, there was a piece inside of me that was withering away and kind of saying, we're not fulfilled anymore. Yeah. And to me, that was incredibly scary because, okay, I had a broadcast journalism degree, but what else would I even do? There was always this side of me that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So actually, I saw there was a woman who had built a wealth advisor company, and I thought, interesting, she's doing that. She's young. Maybe I could do something like that. And then I went to this conference called the Misfit Conference, which is exactly what it sounds like. It was basically all these people in non-traditional careers making incredible careers and livelihoods and fulfilled lives out of them. And I finally felt like, interestingly, that was a little bit of my place, that I wanted to do something different, not to make a statement or buck a trend, but I just knew in my heart that the traditional path was not mine. And so recognizing that and actually realizing that is also a bit scary, because then you're like, well, what does the path look like? So I knew that I had a really strong message, because I had started a nonprofit many years before that. It was a mental health nonprofit in honor of my brother. And I knew that we had built that from nothing to like a very flourishing nonprofit across the entire state of North Dakota and northern Minnesota. And I knew I was able to build something. In that case, I just didn't get paid for it. But I knew I had that entrepreneurial spirit.
And what was that like, leaving that stable, successful into that? I feel like so many entrepreneurs can relate to, I call it like going all in on plan A. That moment where you just decide, you know what, I'm just going to do this and it's just going to work and I'm going to give it my all. It takes a lot of courage to do that. How did you have that?
Well, because I just knew that worst case scenario, I can find a job. Like it might not be my even perfect or dream or ideal job, but worst case scenario, I could probably go to a PR or marketing agency, or I could work at a coffee shop.
Do you think like a lot of entrepreneurs are afraid of taking that leap, and like, you know, a lot of people say no for themselves before they even try it?
So people do not like being uncomfortable. They like the comfort of just being like, this is a comfortable job. This is something easy. This is something known. People are very scared of unknown and discomfort. But they're sitting in a place with like this kind of like mediocre teddy bear that's like okay. When they could have like the big fair plush teddy bear from the fair, they're gonna have to go through a little discomfort and unknown in between that point to get there to that greatness. And so what I always encourage people when they are looking to do a leap or something that's really pushing them beyond, but they're scared to, is I'm like, but think about how much better it could be. And you can't even imagine it yet, because you don't know what it is and you don't know how great it can be. But just be okay with being a little bit uncomfortable. And it's going to be the unknown. And it's okay that you don't have it all figured out. But the one thing that I have found for sure is when you step into what your heart's desire is and what you're supposed to be doing, like what you built with your company, you're not going to have the answers right away. And you can't possibly need that. And if you're someone who absolutely needs that, it's going to be difficult for you to be an entrepreneur. But everything starts lining up. So once I left broadcast, all of a sudden I was seeking out businesses and companies and clients to work with. All of a sudden, once I threw 14 or 15 things at the wall of reaching out to businesses, I at least got like 2 or 3 to call me back, and then maybe one of those I was able to get a pitch to and then actually get some work from. So I was able to little by little get wins. And people started coming to me then too. And I realized like this is exactly what's in alignment with my life that I have to be doing, and I need to be pushing forward on this.
Trigger warning. This episode includes a brief reference to suicide and loss. Support resources are available in the episode description. You talk a lot about like finding your why. And I think every entrepreneur has that one thing that's driving them. You know, I was 16 and 172 taking off out of Burbank, and we had an engine failure. Luckily, we were right over the road. I remember in that moment, I thought I sounded really calm on the radio, went back, listened to live ATC, not calm whatsoever, but landed safely. And I remember thinking that day, and I was like, wow, like if something really were to happen, what am I doing? Like, what am I really passionate about? Like, what would I want to leave behind? And I think people need to ask themselves those hard questions of, why are you here? What do you want to be building? How do you find your why? And how can entrepreneurs, when they're building something, you know, find that?
I think when you're 18, 19, even 30 years old, you might not be as self-aware as when you're 40 or older. And for me, unfortunately, it actually came after immense loss. So growing up in small town Red Wing, Minnesota, we had an amazing experience. My mom was a teacher, my dad was a pharmacist, and I had 2 older brothers. They really were these great guys, and they were star athletes. They had also won like state championships and were just the guy that every guy wanted to be and every girl wanted to date. Unfortunately, when I was 12 years old, my oldest brother, Brandon, died in a car accident suddenly out of nowhere, and my world was completely shattered at 12 years old. I am in 7th grade and just looking to kind of, hang out with friends and go to school. And all of a sudden my world is completely flipped upside down. 5 years later, my other brother, Cam, who was on scholarship playing tennis at Green Bay, total incredible star athlete, was struggling with depression. Nobody knew it. At that time, back in 2001, you didn't really talk about it. You talk more about mental health now, but back then it was absolutely, especially in small towns, you don't talk about it. And none of his friends knew, and my parents and I were the only ones that knew. We didn't know what level that it was actually. And unfortunately, the day before his birthday, he took his life.
Wow, I'm so sorry
and thank you. It was incredibly difficult for me. I was just 17 years old. I was just going into my senior year in high school. And it was completely earth-shattering for our entire community and for our family. And someone taking their life is a much different thing. And so for us, it was very confusing and so many questions that for me, it was particularly difficult because he was like my best friend. Because after my first brother died, he and I were super, super close. And so I think for me, losing them both, my only siblings, all of a sudden you're just kind of like, what do I do now? So after I had lost my brothers, I didn't realize it until many years later that this was kind of bubbling up and percolating up inside of me. But what was happening is that I realized that life is very, very short. And all of this other tertiary stuff that didn't really matter, I didn't care about, like the stuff at school that people would gossip or all that kind of thing. I stopped caring about, and I cared more about, I was so grateful that I had a roof over my head, a great family, that I had friends. I was developing this attitude of gratitude. And then I also, as I was getting older, I didn't realize it until later, but I was becoming very, very intentional with my life because I knew that today is not guaranteed. It isn't. Whether it's our health, our ability to do what we love, whether it's a family member, our finances, whether it is our own life, we're not guaranteed it. So how am I going to make the best out of what I have? And so when I went into pharmacy, but that wasn't what I wanted to do, that was when I started that kind of pivot and recognizing that just because this might be a path that's set out, I don't have to stay on it. Why don't I try something that my heart is going towards? And so intentionality became something that was very, very real inside of me before I even knew what those words meant. And so it's become something that for me, I go run real hard and real fast and fill my plate very, very full because I want to do it all in this lifetime.
I mean, it seems like you're pretty dang intentional to go from getting your private to 5 different jet type ratings.
Yes.
And then becoming a charter pilot. What was that like, flying the line on the Global 6000?
Oh my gosh, that was the most fun experience in the world. So I was so fortunate to fly the Citation Latitude and the Global 6000 and the 5000, 5500 as well, all around the world. I mean, for me, it was probably the most special airplane that I've flown is the Bombardier Global because you're taking it to completely different world and completely different cultures. So traveling does something very unique to a person. I think it humbles you because you see different cultures and different ways that people operate. And you also have to respect that you're in a different place and you need their help. And I also love every different kind of culture that I come across. And I love the nuances and the things that are different and unique. And so getting to fly all over the world was really one of the greatest things ever. More so too from a flight planning perspective. It's a whole different beast when you're flying 12 hours versus 2. And you really have to plan for all kinds of contingencies, for all kinds of things that could go wrong over the Atlantic or the Pacific. And what are your diversions? And how is this going to affect your passengers and yourself?
Do you think everybody is meant to be the pilot, or do you think you have to be bitten by that aviation bug to have that passion to do that every day? I feel like a lot of people would hear 12-hour flight, 18-hour work, I don't want to do that. But pilots, it's like, you love that.
We love that. Well, there are some pilots, though, that I met that they preferred the 1 to 4 hour legs, and they didn't like the longer legs. So within the community itself, there's even the long range pilots and more the shorter legs.
And that makes sense with aircraft choices where you're going to fly like a Phenom or something smaller versus like a longer Global.
Yeah. So when I was flying the Latitude, though, it's 5 legs a day, like 4 to 5 on average. So it's a workhorse. So you're doing 1 to 2 to 3 hour legs, but you're doing 4 or 5 of them. So it's very intense as well. And that creates its own challenges because you can't get too far ahead. This is with the business mindset as well. It's that juxtaposition of being able to look 5 flights ahead, but know that you won't get 5 flights ahead if you don't take care of the first flight. And that's the same with business, that you can look 5 years ahead, but you have to take care of the here and now, and you have to address the issues or the vision at the moment that you have. Otherwise, 5 years won't come.
On the kind of aviation side, every pilot has that one situation where you're like, wow, that was interesting. And I feel like a lot of people, watch on, social media and see the different experiences of emergency aircraft, emergency landings. And the one thing that's always consistent is the pilots are so calm in the cockpit every single time. How do you stay calm? And what's a situation where everything went south, and how did you handle that?
There's an instructor used to say, you'll only be as good as your most recent training. And basically it's saying that like what you train for, what you prepare for, whether it's your most recent or whether it's one that you're constantly training for, that is the one that will be the best when everything hits the fan. And so to prepare for everything hitting the fan, you actually prepare way in advance. So it's simulators, it's going through and seeing how other pilots have done it, and then chair flying some of that as well. So for me, the training was by far the most beneficial for me to prepare myself to be ready in any emergency situation. So flying for a charter company, I was very lucky that I was able to be in the simulator every single year, sometimes twice a year. And so you get to see what it's like down to IFR minimums and then some, because you go to IFR minimums, and then if you can see the approach lights, you can continue another 100 feet. Well, I had seen that scenario so many times, and I didn't know if I'd ever actually be in that scenario in real life until I was. So it happened when I was flying up into the upper Midwest. And of course, there's always a blizzard. There often is. And that weekend I was flying in, there were 2 different blizzards. Wow. So I was flying in single pilot in the Citation 5 by myself. It's a jet, it's a business jet, and there's nobody else in the airplane but me. So it's been about 3.5 hour flight. And I knew the night before that there was a chance that the weather was going to deteriorate. But of course, forecasts are just that, they're predictions. And so once I got there, it deteriorated immensely. Wow. And so I'm flying in and I'm talking to tower, and I'm seeing that it's down to about 1.5 mile visibility, and it's showing 800 ceiling, which is plenty. For that approach, you needed 200 feet vertically and then 1/2 mile visibility, I believe. That's minimum, but at least I had 1.5 miles. That's no big deal. I can do 800 on vertical visibility. I got down there and that was definitely not the case. So as I was coming in and we're getting lower and lower and lower, I get down to minimums and I see the approach lights, but I do not see the runway yet, and I can barely see the ground below me. And I'm like, all right, approach lights continue, and I know I have 100 feet, otherwise I'm needing to go around. Also, mind you, it's 30, gusting 40, 30 degrees off the nose. Wow. And this is all blowing snow.
All right, so it's like the worst case scenario that you're practicing in the simulator that you've done
exactly.
a bunch of times before.
And mind you, I've done similar to this, not to that minimum, but similar with another pilot. I'm alone.
Single pilot resources is very, very different.
Yeah.
But it's like being an entrepreneur.
I know. And so if I really quick back up, going into this flight, I knew there was a possibility that this exact scenario would happen because I saw the forecast. And so I was preparing for it mentally. I was almost like going through the game. I was going through the final shot. And then as I came down and as I was descending, finally just above 100 feet, I see the runway end lights and I'm landing. And as I look at the runway, all the snow is just coming right over the runway. So there's this visual optical illusion that it almost looks like you're landing sideways. Wow. And I had to crab into the wind and then, of course, straighten it out. And I mean, it was wild. Thank God for thrust reversers. Yeah. I was able to land just fine and roll out, and it was great. But without that preparation, without having seen that scenario multiple times in the simulator beforehand, it would have been far more difficult. But it was interesting. I'm like, I've seen this before.
So connectivity, right? I feel like it's such a connected world. Things happen and you hear about it on your phone in 2 seconds. What has that done for you as the pilot? I feel like the workload has changed drastically in terms of calling in on CTAF frequency and kind of getting weather updates and coordinating FBO stuff. You can just call ahead.
I mean, the connectivity is a non-negotiable now because we do want to have all of that information at our fingertips. It's thankfully we don't have to have paper charts and depend on that anymore. We get to have weather at our fingertips, but even turbulence. So for the passengers in the back who are nervous flyers or just want a smooth ride, now we have that connectivity to the ground, which is critical. The other thing is, when you're doing single pilot operations or even crewed operations, if there is an emergency or an abnormality, why not have one more brain to help you out? Why not have one more person? And so having that connectivity to the ground to be able to talk to operations, dispatch, maintenance, and say, hey, what do you suggest? What can we do? You know, all of those sorts of things, to have another perspective is huge. And then to be able to coordinate on the ground. If we're going to go, if we can't get into Aspen because the winds are coming at the wrong direction, which is very common, we're going to rifle instead. We want to be able to, as the pilots, be able to coordinate and get everything set over in rifle.
On like the passenger side, like it's funny, like one of the biggest complaints we get is, I'm trying to watch Netflix, I'm trying to, you know, watch movies, and the Wi-Fi keeps cutting out. Oh, it's really cool here, and then we fly over a flyover saying it's not as good.
Yes.
On like the Viasat Jet XP, you know, side for business aviation, the biggest thing is consistency. So you're watching that movie's playing. You're not going to get 20 minutes of the movie, pause at a cliffhanger, and have to wait what's next. So that consistency in the cabin is so important for our clients. And I mean, to the point where we're filtering different Wi-Fi providers, types of Wi-Fi's to kind of be able to offer that. In the cockpit, that consistency is pretty important. I mean, you get that information right away when you need it. It's not delayed. And I know on the kind of social media side, I can get, you know, updates on when the pink jet's flying.
Exactly. And for our passengers, it's important because these aircraft have turned into offices in the sky, that they're taking business meetings there. They really can't afford to be away for 5 hours, let alone even like 20 minutes. So they do have to be able to be reachable. And whether it's family and friends or whether it's their clients, they do need to be able to have that connectivity to the ground, because also now that we've brought that into airplanes, people have another level of expectation of that they need that in there, and understandably so.
Business aviation is the new boardroom now.
Yes, yeah.
And having those meetings from the back, getting things done quickly, efficiently, and being connected consistently. The amount of times that clients will fly places for business and our team's like, hey, do you want the caviar or the catering? Like, no. We need to get there easily, efficiently, and we need to be connected the entire time. And, you know, Jet XP products and Viasat entirely, I mean, is keeping that connected from the back.
Absolutely. I've had instances where the actual flight is a business meeting, where whether it's a consultant or a business partner or someone.
It's a private spot.
Exactly. And then they go off their separate ways once they land. So you are able to have that same level of connectivity in the sky at 45,000 feet as you are on the ground.
So between the Citation and the Pink Jet, which is your favorite jet to fly?
It's like asking me who my favorite child is. I cannot tell you that.
Really? People don't have favorite childs?
No, I say that there's different loves for each of them depending on the mission. So with the Citation, of course, that is the magic carpet that gets us all around the world. That is like the big Suburban in the sky. For my favorite to like fun fly is definitely the L-39 Albatross, and particularly the Pink Jet. I just feel so lucky to be a part of that organization and be the steward of that. The Pink Jet is an L-39 Albatross. It's a military trainer jet with breast cancer awareness ribbons and Pink Strong for breast cancer awareness, early detection, and supporting survivors. So we fly at air shows all around North America. I even go worldwide.
That must be such a cool thing and such a big responsibility.
No, it's a huge responsibility. It started a couple of years ago by a gentleman named Steve Oakley. He and his wife started it, Jamie, and they're phenomenal people. And he had this passion to bring a mission like this forward. Well, unfortunately, about a year ago, he passed away in a car accident. And so then the question was, are we going to be able to keep building this and bringing this forward? And I had been helping him build the organization from right around the beginning point. And it was devastating to our entire team to lose him. But the family, his wife, and the whole team basically said, we want to move this forward. And then I was very, very fortunate that they said, hey, we'd like you to lead it. Well, it's a full-time job that, of course, is not paid a penny, but I'm so grateful to do it. Because
but it's paid in the gratitude and the mission, the impact that you're having, which is huge.
It's an all volunteer team. So we have 5 pilots total. We have 2 maintenance teams that do all of our maintenance for us. And it's absolutely incredible. So for us to be able to be that symbol of hope and strength, but also to show young women and girls that they belong in the flight deck and they can have this career as well and be able to do this. It's a space for everyone. I feel very lucky to be the steward of that.
That recognition and that representation is so important.
It is. It's critical. We have to get every walk of life in aviation, make it welcoming for them, because we need a difference in perspective. Diversity is not just a nice to have. It's critical in the flight deck to have a diversity of perspective because they might see something that someone else doesn't, and then it becomes a safety importance. And I'm so glad that we're bringing more walks of life into aviation.
Now, what role has social media played in that? Spreading the message as loud as possible, as many people as possible, probably people sitting in the back of a Gulfstream or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's invaluable. I can't even imagine. It's such a gift for us to be able to spread the message for the pink jet or bringing women and other groups into aviation all around the world that we never would have been able to before. So I think we're just so grateful that people love it so much and they respond to it and they want to see it. And we are booked with a lot of air shows this year. So there's going to be so many people that are going to be attending.
I hope to make it out to one of those.
Please, we would love to have you.
What is your message to the entrepreneurs that are watching this, that want to, that are inspired by your story and want to take the lead themselves? And two, what is your biggest aviation tip to pilots?
For entrepreneurs, don't get disheartened. It's very difficult and it's very challenging and it can be exhausting. Once you step into that, it's not all of a sudden like bright lights and sunshine and butterflies. That's where the real work begins. Have people around you that are your kind of board of directors, your dream team, your support that's going to help you in times that you don't know what to do. But if you are desiring it, you have to do that because it's a disservice to the world to not use your skills in that way. So hopefully that can continue to push you along with having the support around you. For pilots, the biggest tip is never stop learning. Anything can happen. And so I think immersing yourself and learning everything you possibly can about the aircraft or situations that others have faced is going to be so important. So then you can put that into practice in your own flying. And then please bring someone else up behind you because this industry
is very contagious.
This industry does not happen without bringing others along with it and making it a welcoming and open space for those who have a good attitude and really want to work hard.
Well, I appreciate being here. It was an honor to have you on. We could chat for 10 more hours.
We easily could.
I think we'll have to go flying soon.
We absolutely will. I will fly you in the private jet and you can be in the back on Wi-Fi.
I love that.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. And to our audience, thank you for being here. Stephanie, it's been fascinating to understand the intentionality behind your life and how that plays at the intersection of business and aviation. They inform how we lead, travel, and stay connected in a world that never stops moving. Joining us on the next episode of Above the Noise, Sam Tui. He's one of the world's most recognized aviation creators, with millions of followers across YouTube and other social platforms.
My mission is to help the future generation to choose the lifestyle that they truly want.